and then we can go ahead and get started. But before I hand it over to Melissa, who's going to introduce our guest, I just wanted to say a couple words about what's been happening. To be honest, I'm not surprised by what happened yesterday. I'm still a little shocked, though. I know that many of us have been following the events at the State House for years, and we can see how a lot of this has been leading up to what happened yesterday. And we can see a lot of, I think as League of Women Voters members, we can see how a lot of it goes back to and relates back to the voter suppression that's happening in our state. I'm personally inspired by the Tennessee 3 and all of the people that showed up last week at the House and this week. In particular, the young people who have shown up and been involved and participated in the protests and advocating for stricter gun laws in the wake of the tragic shooting at the Covenant School. I know it's been, it's one of those things where I think you can see like a glimmer of hope. And I think it's our responsibility as adults who can vote to make sure that we keep them in mind as we do our work this summer, registering voters, explaining to these young people who are going to be voting that they can vote in our city election coming up. And that's going to be really important, because then if they go off to college and they want to vote absentee in 2024, they will have voted in person this summer. So they have the opportunity. So I think we could keep that as in the forefront of our minds as we're working with voters and talking to voters. And I think as members of the League of Women Voters, we can play an integral role in helping citizens get to the poll this summer. On top of everything that's happened, it's going to be a little confusing this summer, whether or not we have 20 districts, 17 districts, or the districts that we currently have, which also have been redistricted since the last election. So we have our work cut out for us to help voters understand who they're voting for and what their district is, and the structure of the city council if it does get cut down to 20. And I personally just want to thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate the League of Women Voters and all of the expertise and the passions that you bring. We were talking a little earlier before everyone joined. It's hard to keep up with everything. And I feel grateful that I have colleagues who are able to keep up with things that I am not. So I appreciate all of the work that you do and everything that you bring to our organization. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to introduce our guest today. And we are so grateful that you're here, Mr. Matthews.
Yes, we're delighted with that. And thanks to Reba Holmes, if she's on the call today. She made the suggestion that we contact the juvenile justice system and Mr. Matthews specifically to see if you'd be willing to speak to our group today. And it's very, the timing is wonderful. Karen and I have had a very we could call it easy job this year. There's no end to the topics that we want to cover. And the speakers who are willing to share their lived experiences and viewpoints with us. So we really appreciate having Clerk Lonnell Matthews with us today. And he comes to us as the first elected, Nashville's first elected African-American juvenile court clerk. He's held that role since 2018 and was reelected in 2022. And in addition to his elected office, we will give a shout out to Lonnell for being the co-founder of My Brother's Keeper Nashville Alliance, where he partners to close the achievement gap with young men and boys of color. And so that's another vital service, a voluntary effort here in Nashville that helps keep the fabric of our community woven tight. And we thank you for that. He is going to talk to us, and we have a special guest appearance. We think Sheila Calloway, Judge Sheila Calloway, is going to be able to step in for a cameo. So we'll be waiting for that to arrive at some point during our session here. Mr. Matthews is going to discuss the future of juvenile justice in Nashville. And there's a lot in flux right now because of the opening of the new Nashville Youth Campus for Empowerment. So he's going to share information with us about that, and especially the court's mission, which is to bring justice, fairness, and hope to all of those who find themselves intersected with our law enforcement community. So, Clerk Matthews, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me today. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize she calls me her partner in justice. We don't like to say partner in crime over in court. But partner in justice, Judge Sheila Calloway, she is the most phenomenal visionary and leader in the area of justice, I think, in this country, if I get to be biased. But I'm certainly glad that she could join us, and I'm going to actually give her a chance to address the audience in just a second. I'd be remiss if I didn't also touch on the events of the past couple of weeks. It's been a tough 2 weeks to be a Nashvilleian, really, if you really think about it. And I know that it was said that it's not really surprising, some of the things that have transpired over the past couple of days, but it's disheartening. I'll say that it's really disheartening to see people that have really upheld prejudice and discrimination and bias, to see them just take another step out of the shadows and really just put that in the public eye, and in a way that paints our state, which I think, I'm a native Nashvilleian. I grew up in Nashville. I grew up in Tennessee. I just think it paints our state in a bad light, because the world is watching. People all across I got texts from people all across the country yesterday as things were unfolding. And so I think one bright spot was really listening to Representative Jones and Representative Pearson and even Representative Johnson. She stood her ground as they were all being from my point of view, interrogated. But they really they stood up to the challenge. They really took advantage of the platform that was given to them. And I think that on the other side of this, they're going to be able to use that influence to really push forward an agenda that's going to really take not only our city, but our state to in the trajectory that we need to be going. And that's my hope. That's my hope coming out of all of this. And so also, before I get into the presentation, I do want to open the floor to Judge Calloway. Judge, are you able to unmute?
I am. Sorry about that. It took a minute.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear.
And Judge Calloway, congratulations on winning the Athena Award. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to see all these friends on the line. Thank you for just allowing me a minute to speak, Lonnell, and just the invitation to be here with League of Women Voters. I love this organization and everything you all stand for. I think, as Lonnell said, it is really heavy, and it is a heavy time in our state. And I don't know if you all were aware as well that part of the legislative billing cycle this year was to drastically change the way that we do youth justice and drastically change it in a way that takes us back to the 1800s and not the progress that we've achieved. One of the things that gets lost in the conversation is, there's always a belief or a thought or a media bites that say that juvenile crime is on a rise and is at all-time high, and that could be furthest from the truth. Over in countrywide, juvenile crime is actually down. And then specifically here in Davidson County, the TBI released the numbers of the decrease in juvenile crime here in our county. And literally from 2011, where there was about 5,000 youth that were arrested for different serious offenses. Last year, that number from the TBI was 645. And I value this, or I believe these numbers, and I absolutely know that they're true. They come from the actual TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, not from Sheila Calloway or Lonnell Matthews, but from an outside source. And what I absolutely know that has happened is that we have a community that is working together to uplift our children. We have a community that understands that locking kids up in punishment is not the answer, but that it's surrounding them with loving, caring, supportive people. And over the last 8 years that I've been in this position, we have seen so many people come together to help us to provide the programs and the best programs that we can for each and every one of our youth. From the school system, from the police department, from the district attorney, from the public defender, from all of our nonprofit organizations that we continuously partner with, such as the Oasis Center and the Real Program, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Why We Can't Wait, and Epic Girl, and Fine Design, and all the many programs that we continuously work with to really give our youth an opportunity, a chance to survive in our community. And we've done amazing work, and that's why our youth crime numbers are absolutely decreasing. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the work that we've done, and looking forward to absolutely doing even more that we can. So the next time we have a time to chance to y'all, we can say that number of 600 arrests has dropped down to 0. And that's what I'm looking for. And I know that we can do that as we move into our NICE, National Youth Campus for Empowerment, that we'll be able to offer more and more services and more programs for each and every one of our youth that come into our system. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lonnell, my partner in justice, to tell more about NICE.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Calloway. Of course, everyone in this community knows how revered Judge Calloway is, and you could just understand my motivation for being able to come into court, to come into a very an environment that is pretty traumatic when you think about what we deal with, and be motivated and hopeful that we could really make a difference in the community that we serve. Before I start my presentation, I will talk a little bit, because Melissa mentioned it when she was introducing me. But when I was elected in 2018, and I came to court, came from the mayor's office, and of course I've served on the Metro Council before I worked in the mayor's office. My statutory responsibility is to be the keeper of records for court. So I'm responsible for processing and compiling all of our filings. I'm responsible for scheduling and creating the dockets. I'm responsible for being the fee office for the court. But I felt a social responsibility being elected by the constituents of Davidson County also to make sure that I was doing everything that I could to help inform the community on how to better interact with families and young people, so that we can provide them the best supports and services that we possibly can. And personally for me, my background is also in youth development. It was incumbent upon me to be able to get outside of the walls of court and actually be in community the best way that I knew how. And so Ashford Hughes is someone that I met in college. Me and Ashford, we actually came into Tennessee State University together as freshmen. We stayed on the same floor in the freshman dorm, and he was this young guy with dreadlocks from Knoxville when I met him, and he thought he could play basketball, and he still thinks he can. But we ended up working in the mayor's office together under Mayor Megan Berry, and our friendship has always just grown throughout both of our careers in public service. And now that he's at the school system and I'm at juvenile court, we got together and we got with the Obama Foundation, and we said, we need to relaunch My Brother's Keeper, and we need to make sure that we have programs and supports that are surrounding boys and young men of color in our community. And I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do the past couple of years. This past year, we really launched a great culturally inclusive and affirming citywide literacy campaign called I Read, I Lead. And we've been doing a lot of work, especially around the 3rd and 4th grade retention law that was put in place. And everyone understands or probably has heard about the correlation between 3rd grade reading and how we built prisons historically in this country. And so those are all real things. And so I'm proud of that work, but I'm also proud of kind of next steps for My Brother's Keeper. We actually just signed a memorandum of understanding with the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. They're going to become our nonprofit backbone organization for the work that we're doing and allow us to really build capacity and scale up and hire staff. But also in the conversations that we've been having with Urban League, we understand that when it comes to some of the disparities that we see for education and employment and incarceration, Black and brown males are usually affected the worst, but they are part of families that include Black and brown girls. And even though Judge Calloway talks about brain development in young people, and she always tells me that women will always be smarter than men, and I believe that of our young ladies and their and young boys also. Women, Black and brown women, they face double the discrimination, prejudice, and bias. And so the challenges for them are equally as important to address. And so we will be this summer, when we announce our partnership with Urban League of Middle Tennessee, we will also be announcing that we're working with Define Design, we're working with Girls Inc., we're working with Moves and Grooves, and several other young women serving organizations to create My Sister's Keeper in this city, and they're going to work alongside us. And I'm really excited about that work and being able to kind of get outside of my office and go into community and do some of the work to prevent young people from coming to see us in court in the first place. But I'm really excited about the vision that Judge Calloway cast for the city of Nashville. And I'm going to get into this presentation. If you'll allow me a second to share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? Make sure it came up. All right. And so in let me go through the presentation. Let me not get ahead of myself. But I'm going to present to you this morning on the National Youth Campus for Empowerment. I'm going to describe what that is. I don't want to get into the description because it's actually in the presentation. But I will say, this project is long overdue for the city of Nashville. As we have talked about changes in juvenile justice and how we approach juvenile justice, Judge Calloway has done a phenomenal job of changing the operation of court and how we operate court, how we operate our detention center, how we train our staff, how we prepare our staff, how we set up our programs. But the investment and the resources and the facilities that we try to program in do not reflect the changes that we've tried to put in place. And so this project is going to be very important for several reasons for the community. And let's talk about what some of those reasons are. My clicker's not working. I'm gonna have to do this manually. Maybe it's not my clicker. Oh, just 1 second. We tested this out before we started and it was working. I'm gonna try that share again. All right. There we go. All right. I want to start here, and Judge Calloway kind of alluded to some of the things that were going on in the 1800s as we shifted to the 1900s, but in the late 1980s and early 1990s is when in America we really saw the philosophy of how we approach juvenile justice shift and change. We had the war on drugs that was going on at that time. And we also just had very punitive laws put in place. So more transfer for adults to the, for juveniles to the adult system at that time. And we saw this uptick in juvenile crime around that time. Around the same time is when we built our current juvenile justice system. So our current juvenile justice system opened its doors in 1994. We built this center for one elected judge and to house 3 appointed magistrates. So we built the center for 4 courtrooms to operate. We had community partners that we work with in juvenile court were housed in the center. And we thought that we were building it for the future, but we were really building it for the philosophies that everyone was embracing at that time. Even the detention center looks very institutional. And I kind of cringed when I walked back in our detention center because it looks like a jail. And we're going to talk about the statutory purpose of juvenile court in a minute, but Judge Calloway will tell you that one of her charges is to do away with the taint of criminalization of young people. And when you walk into our detention center, you really don't feel like that's happening. So today's operation, we house 1 elected judge, and we actually have 9 appointed magistrates at 2 locations. So we are at the current Juvenile Justice Center, but we also have a Metro Student Attendance Center that's located off of Trinity Lane. And that's a partnership with Juvenile Court and the Metro National Public Schools. We address a lot of truancy issues at that facility. We also house our Safe Babies Court at the Metro Student Attendance Center as well. And so we've had to move a lot of our community partners out of the building to make room for the additional magistrates and additional courtrooms that were needed as Nashville grew since 1994. And also as our programs grew, as we identified different programs that were needed and different issues that we needed to address, that in turn probably created a new courtroom or a new docket that we needed to have in juvenile court. And so making room for that. At these 2 facilities too, we occupy currently about 96,000 square feet between these 2 facilities. I want to talk about the business of juvenile court. So 2/3 of the business that we do at juvenile court involve family conflict and child well-being. So mostly issues that are leveraged by the parents, all right? We call them parentage issues. And those issues are issues of custody, visitation, establishing parentage. I can't see my slide. Hold just 1 second. I'm covered up. My face is covering up. I'm gonna have to move myself. Child support, guardianship, child abuse, neglect, and dependency. And so we see about 45,000 hearings in juvenile court annually. About 30,000 of those are gonna deal with these parentage issues. This is a huge portion of the business that we do in juvenile court. And a lot of the programs and resources that we have go toward these issues. The other 1/3 of business that we do in juvenile court is what you normally think about when you hear about juvenile court in the news. And that's going to be your delinquency, unruly, and status offenses. A majority of that 1/3 are status offenses, all right? And that's really important to mention because when we talk about the vision that went into developing the master plan for the National Youth Campus for Empowerment, we had to really be intentional on the type of young people that we were seeing and how we were processing those young people to get them to the supports and services that they really do need. And so a status offense too, let me mention, I'm sorry, let me mention that a status offense is an offense because of a young person's age. So just simply because of their age, it's an offense. If I'm 43 and I run away from home, and Judge uses an example when she talks about her and her son Trey, well, if I'm 43 and I run away from home, and don't tell my wife that I'm saying this because I never will want to run away from home. I love my wife, I love my kids. But if I do it, it's okay. Everyone's just gonna be like, he's a bad husband and bad father. If my son runs away from home, then he gets arrested by the police because of his age, because he's under the age of 18. And that's a status offense. If he tries to go and buy cigarettes, or if he tries to purchase something because of his age, he can be arrested for it. And those are status offenses. And so those are a majority of the arrests that we actually see in the city of Nashville are status offenses. This chart shows what Judge was talking about. This shows from 2013 to 2021, but you can see in 2013, the number of arrests we had in Davidson County were at 47, a little over 4,700. And in 2021, we were at over 1,300. And so we've seen this downward trajectory when it comes to juvenile arrest, which shows us that youth crime is going down. It's going in the right direction. Even the 600 that Judge mentioned for 2022, that gives the media enough to show you a case every day. And they show it to you over and over again. So it seems like it's happening at a much higher rate than it actually is. And we also need to work on, like Judge said, we need to work on bringing that 600 number down to 0. That is our goal. That is the goal for the community. But we are headed in the right direction. And I want everyone to feel confident that some of the policies and practices that we put in place, they are actually working in this regard. It's important to also mention that the Juvenile Justice Center is not a jail, all right? A lot of people, because we have a pretrial detention facility that's attached to the juvenile court, they automatically assume it's a jail, but it's not a jail. We have a secure pretrial housing facility. The average, and when I say pretrial housing facility, that means any young person that's held in our pretrial housing, they have committed, or there's a threat of safety if they're put back into the community. They committed or been accused of committing one of 9 enumerated charges. And those charges usually involve some type of weapon, bodily harm, sexual abuse, kidnapping. So they're very serious charges. But we average around 45 young people a day in our detention center, and the average length of stay is 14 days because they are awaiting trial, right? They have not been adjudicated, and so this is a temporary placement for young people when they're in our custody in our detention center. Now, across America, what we have seen in the past decade is really a push for more decarceration strategies across America. And if you think about the statutory purpose of juvenile court, and I'm going to read this because I'm not an attorney. I do not want to mess this up. Judge knows this by heart. But the statutory purpose of juvenile court is to provide youth treatment, training, and rehabilitation such that they are not criminalized or mentally, physically, and psychologically well. All right, that is our charge. Our charge is to treat, rehabilitate, not criminalize young people, and make sure that they're mental, they're physical, and they're psychologically well. All right. And so decarceration strategies, we've been looking at evidence, and decarceration strategies have been proven to work. Diversions, when we think about diversions from court and diversionary programs that we administer here, we see our recidivism rate come from about 15% from young people that go through the traditional court process, 15 to 20%, down to 5 and 6%. So we know that we know that it really works when we partner with community and we actually divert young people back into community. That's where they really get the real help. And it's with those collaborations that we see the best results and the most success when it comes to our young people. In Tennessee, the decarceration strategies have been no different. And if I go back to the chart real quick, in 2018, I'm gonna click back up real quick. But if you notice between 2017 and 2018 is where you see the significant dip. There was some important work that happened in 2018. And that was when Tennessee put together a blue ribbon committee to look at juvenile justice across the state. Judge Calloway was part of that committee. And it was a blue ribbon task force that was appointed by former Governor Haslam. And what came out of that committee was the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2018. And that Reform Act really changed some of the charges and offenses that young people could be arrested and detained for, or even transferred or referred to juvenile court from a school district. And so that made a significant difference because we were getting several referrals from our school district, but changing the way that we handle disciplinary and behavior issues in school made a huge difference from young people coming in contact with the juvenile justice system. And so our current Juvenile Justice Center has outlived its effective usefulness. Of course, we're not really meeting our statutory demand because of how institutionalized our current facility is. And it also has some other issues in terms of how we detain children that are non-detainable at times when they're picked up or arrested by our police. But this center is not trauma-informed either. We train our staff on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. We train our staff to be trauma-informed, but this facility and the environment that they work in don't reflect that. During 2010, during the flood, our court was impacted directly by the flood. If you look at the top right, the top left is outside of our court going down our front steps of court, but the top left, the top right is actually my office. That's the lobby of my office. And so our files were underwater. We had to do a lot of rehabilitation. But what the flood also did was it damaged our plumbing infrastructure. And so we had some residual issues with plumbing infrastructure where our staff were walking into our building just as recent as a year ago. Staff were walking into our building from our staff parking lot and they were met with sewage coming out of the door as they walked into court. They'd gone to break areas and seen sewage coming out of the sinks. And so it really has, we've really faced some infrastructure issues that make working in the court environment difficult at times because of some of those issues. The third thing and issue with our current facility is inadequate meeting space. So we just had a group, Leadership Nashville came to visit our court yesterday. And as they walked through, we had a very busy lobby, but they also could just walk through and hear attorneys talking to their clients about very sensitive subject matter. And so, and I've heard it too. If I go walk through court right now, I'm probably going to hear someone talking about a very sensitive matter that should be discussed in confidence or should only be discussed inside of court in confidence. And so we have to make sure that we're creating very adequate meeting space for our attorneys, their clients, for our mediators as they're meeting with families or anyone trying to help the families that we're serving here in juvenile court. And so enter the National Youth Campus for Empowerment. NICE is what we like to call it, NYCE. It's going to be a family-centered, trauma-informed campus. We're going from an occupancy currently of 96,000 square feet, which I told you earlier, to 279,000 square feet. And we plan to meet Nashville's family justice needs beyond the year 2035. When we were doing master planning in 2017, we were presented at that time with two scenarios. So we looked at the current footprint of where we sit next to Nissan Stadium downtown. And could we do everything that we were trying to do on this current footprint? Could we put 279,000 square feet somehow on our current footprint? And it really just didn't make sense because we would have had to build probably a very tall building, 10 to 11 stories high, to be able to fit everything on our current footprint. And so the second scenario that was proposed was a campus style scenario where we looked for more acreage and we looked for the ability to build the facilities that we would need to address the needs of our young people going forward for several decades to come. And so we really chose and opted to pursue the campus style development. And so that led us to looking for properties that met this following criteria. So we looked for properties that were in close proximity to the downtown loop. We wanted to be close to downtown, but we wanted to be far enough outside of the downtown loop that we didn't have to deal with some of the challenges of being located in downtown. And I'm going to talk about some of those, but such as parking, such as traffic, and other challenges. We wanted easy access for our attorneys and court partners. So we have attorneys that actually practice not only at juvenile court, but they practice at circuit court and in the Birch courthouse also. And we wanted to make sure that our attorneys could continue making a living. And if they needed to go back and forth between courthouses, they wouldn't have to pick and choose. Well, I'm just going to have to practice in juvenile court, or I'm just going to practice in Birch. We want to give them the ability to go back and forth and serve as many families or clients as they possibly can. But we also want to be close to our nonprofit partners that we partner with. And a lot of our nonprofit partners are located close to the center of town. So they're more accessible to families all over the county. And so we wanted to be close to the center of town as we possibly could be too. Accessibility to public transportation was something that was very important to us. So being near a main thoroughfare where we could take advantage of WeGo and the bus routes. A lot of our families use public transportation to get to and from court. We wanted adequate public parking. Not only do we need adequate public parking for just our day-to-day business and operation, but we also wanted adequate public parking for community spaces and events that might occur on the campus as well. And we wanted that parking to be free. Right now, in our current location, we don't control the parking lots. Our litigants have to pay for parking, and it's an additional barrier for families when we serve probably 75 to 80% of the families that we serve qualify for indigency. And we wanted ample green space. Right now on our current property, we are sitting on a parking lot. It is a concrete jungle. Even the young people that are housed temporarily in our pretrial housing facility here, they get no green space at all. They barely get outdoor recreational space, and that's probably the size of a small den in a home. And so it's not very conducive to giving them that recreational space to be physically active as they probably should be. And so more than just a new juvenile court, the campus will house our new court. We're looking forward to having a beautiful court that really is trauma informed, where the courtrooms are built in a way that really is conducive of the type of conferencing that we want to have with our families and the type of conversations that we want to lead to solutions for our families and young people. But we also have some issues that we have to address. One of those issues is when a young person is picked up for a non-detainable offense or for a status offense, they're not supposed to be brought to our detention center. In Nashville, we have nowhere else to take those young people. So we have no other choice but to bring them to our detention center so that we could keep record of what occurred, what was reported, and try to process or service that issue as best we can. But what should be happening and what is really part of the visioning of Judge Calloway and leading our master plan process, what should be happening is we should be bringing them to a 24-hour assessment center for youth in crisis. So if a young person runs away and they're picked up by the police, bring them to our 24-hour assessment center. We're going to be able to have space in there for our community partners to be on campus with us. It will be staffed 24 hours. So if they're brought in 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, They still will be able to be assessed. We'll be able to connect them with the right programs and services that they need before we connect them back with their family. And if you think about a runaway, kids that run away from home ran away for a reason. So they may not be able to immediately be connected with their family at that moment. Maybe we need to take a couple of days to really assess their needs, assess the programs, and make sure that the environment is safe for them to go back home to. And so we'll have a 12-bed respite center in the 24-hour assessment center also, where they will be able to stay, not in a detention environment, but in an environment where they're receiving the services and supports that they really need. We'll also have on this campus a safe exchange therapeutic visitation facility. And we actually want this facility to look like a house. We want it to look like a home so that our Safe Baby support staff will actually be located in this location. But when we are doing therapeutic or supervised visitation, we want those parents to be able to do it in an environment where they have a kitchen, where they have a living room, where they can sit and watch a movie with their young person. And we can actually teach them parenting skills in an environment that looks like the environment they should have at their home. We also deal with parents that don't get along, surprise. But some parents have domestic issues that they're dealing with, and they may have an order of protection in place, and they still have to exchange custody. Right now, if that situation exists, we send those parents to a police precinct to exchange custody. And think of how traumatic it is for a young person to say, I'm going to visit my mom or visit my dad, but before I do that, I always have to go to the police precinct. That's not a way that a child should be experiencing going from parent to parent. And so we're going to have a safe exchange facility, therapeutic visitation facility, where those exchanges can happen in a trauma-informed environment. Additional benefits of this project is we will see improved road infrastructure in a very developing community. The property, I didn't say this earlier, but I should have. The property that we purchased for this project is located off of Brick Church Pike, 1354 Brick Church Pike. It's the old Almena Shrine Temple property, if you're familiar with where that's located. So very close to Trinity Lane and Brick Church Pike. And for us, it's right between our two current facilities. So where we're located in the Juvenile Justice Center and our Metro Student Attendance Center, that property is located right in the middle of those two properties. So water and sewer improvements will be made also to the infrastructure for that developing community along with this project. We plan to have multi-purpose community space, about 6,000 square feet of multi-purpose community space, so that neighborhood associations or community groups that need a meeting space will be able to use that space, but also some of our nonprofit partners, if they have events or training for their staff that they want to use this space for, that space will be available to the community. So think about if you've ever been to Lynch Public Health Center and seen the community space and multi-purpose space there, we want something that's really going to rival and complement that type of space. Public parking. Free public parking. We see the benefit of public parking in a developing community to be able to actually help on the weekends, because this is a mixed use community. So they're going to have restaurants and different entertainment amenities moving into the community. And if you've seen 12th South and 5 Points in East Nashville, you've seen how these communities have developed mixed use, but the parking spills over into the neighborhoods. And so our parking, public parking, will be accessible on the weekends, and it could help some of that spillage from carrying over into the neighborhoods. Improve public safety, because there will be more presence of police vehicles coming to and from court, whether they're witnesses in hearings or just transporting young people back and forth to the facility. But that presence is going to be a deterrent to crime in the area. Access to prevention and intervention services right there on campus. So instead of referring people to programs and expecting them to connect with them outside of the campus, we want them to be able to walk down the hallway and actually meet program people right there on campus as we're recommending those programs in court. And shared green and recreational spaces. So not only do we want to build our pretrial housing on this campus in a dormitory style, to where young people can get outside in a very secure dormitory style housing, but young people will be able to go outside and experience green space, experience nature, get some fresh air. But outside of that, we want green space that's shared, whether it's greenways around the campus, whether it's plazas or courtyards on the campus that the community can enjoy as well. And so we want this to truly be a campus for youth empowerment. We don't want young people to be just labeled as justice involved anymore. We want them to be labeled as justice empowered. And we want to make sure that we're working toward solutions for young people in all the work that we're doing. And so the current status of this project, of course, I mentioned we did master planning in 2017. In 2020, when we first approached the mayor, before we first approached the mayor, we started a cost analysis of the 2017 master plan, but just because construction costs had gone up in Nashville so drastically over those 3 years. 2021, the Metro Council approved our first phase of funding, which allowed us to purchase the property off of Brick Church Pike and also to hire the architect and design firm, which we're working with now. In 2022, we created a Metro Project Committee consisting of the mayor's office, clerk staff, Metro General Services, Metro Planning, and we vetted about 10 to 11 different sites before we selected the site that we're currently designing for the project. In 2022, we started working with the Metro Public Health Department because this project for Metro government is the pilot project for the Health and All Policies assessment. And so we are not only looking from this through a traditional project development lens, we're looking at this from an environmental, social, and economical impact lens as well. And so the health department is helping us to walk us through making sure that we put those lenses on the decisions that are being made as we go through this process. The summer of 2022, DLR was selected as our architect and design firm. They are a firm out of Florida, and they are subcontracting with Hunter G Studios as the local architect and subcontractor. Fall of 2022, we put together a community steering committee that is made up of area residents, area business owners around our property, but also some of our nonprofit partners and other government agencies that we partner with to make sure that we're taking everyone's insight and perspective into account as we design this project. Also in fall of 2022, Bell Harding Group was selected as our construction management firm. We held 3 steering committee meetings, and we also held our first community-wide design charrette to where community members were able to come in and talk with our architect and design team and give them the initial feedback before they went into the design process. February of this year, we had our second phase of funding approved by the Metro Council. And so we have the funding to actually start construction when we get to that point. We're not at that point yet, but we're almost there. And just last month in March, we finalized our program space audit. So we figured out the square footage for each function and office or division of court that we would need for the campus before we got into the next phase of design. And so these are just some renderings of the property where our architect, they actually looked at the floodplain, they're looking at the grade of the property. Of course, we won't design or build anything in the floodplain, but we will take advantage of those spaces for some of the greenways or outdoor courtyards that we mentioned that we want to put on the property. We'll be looking to build more toward the north side of the property. Also, we're considering putting the road through the property to connect Brick Church Pike with World Baptist Headquarters Boulevard. We are very aware of Oracle moving in near our courthouse. And so we also want to be cognizant of whatever improvements we can make to traffic flow with this project before 7,500 employees of Oracle move into this one area, that they'll be able to flow through and not disrupt the neighborhood traffic as much. And so this is our current project schedule. Our start actually should be moved up a little bit past March, but we are entering the schematic design phase of the project this month, and that will go through the summer where we'll start to see the first renderings of the building. We plan to host a second community-wide design charrette at some point, but hopefully toward the fourth quarter of this year, we'll be able to finish the design phase, and we'll be able to break ground and start entering the construction phase at the beginning of 2024. The project date that we have for completion, the tentative project date for completion right now is 2026. We're looking at around May of 2026 is where we've estimated to complete this project. So next steps, we're going to continue to meet with community stakeholders. We've been meeting with neighborhood associations. We've been meeting with community chambers. We've been meeting with nonprofit association membership and boards. And we're going to continue to do that. Even though we've secured funding, we feel it's very important for us to educate the community on what we do in juvenile court, but also what we are trying to do and why we feel it's important for Nashville to invest in this type of campus. We put together a community survey with the health department to go along with the health and all policies work. And so we're looking for community feedback while we're in the design process, and you can do that through our survey, which I'm going to share a link to the survey in just a second, but I also will share it with Melissa and others, and they can send it out to your membership even after the presentation. We're going to be demoing the current structures on the property in the next couple of months. We'll host our second community-wide design charrette. I've already mentioned that. As we get into the schematic design phase, we complete the design phase for quarters this year, and we're looking forward to breaking ground on this project soon. And we hope that you all will think about and consider joining us as we do break ground. I mentioned that community voice is very important to us, so we're going to do as much community engagement as we possibly can. That's one of my backgrounds is in community engagement. It's something that I feel is a priority. We shouldn't be doing a project like this without the community walking alongside us and really owning the project and giving us the input of how it should look and what it should do. And so here's a QR code to our stakeholder survey. I have it on the last slide, so I'm going to just go past this slide because it's going to come up. I do want to mention right before I close, other than this project, we also need volunteers from the community. And so we're always looking for volunteers for our foster care review board, and we're looking for volunteers for our court-appointed special advocates. And I have a link to the website on the PowerPoint, but I also have it in what I'll share that could be sent out to your membership as well. If you are interested in these volunteer opportunities, we train, there's training that goes along with both of these opportunities to teach you how to serve as either of these appointments, but these are always in constant need. We're always looking for volunteers for these two functions, and these are volunteers that really get to walk along young people in their journey towards success and becoming a successful adult. And so with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today. I hope that you gained a little insight on how we're trying to change and improve juvenile justice, not only in the city of Nashville, but we truly are trying to become a national model that other cities could look to for how we do juvenile justice in this country. And I'll open the floor for any questions you may have.
So first, I'll share with the group that I have put the link that we see on the screen right now. It's in the meeting chat. If you want to open that and copy it and bookmark it for later review. Clerk Matthews, I have a question for you about, we see frequently, as you mentioned, that while the juvenile arrest rate has dropped dramatically because of our news cycle now, we can see, the same story over and over, or, referred back to, dredged up, which would make it seem like things are, 600, yes, realistically is still a lot, but I wonder have you encountered pushback from people, or is there a counter argument to saying, that the arrest rate dropping is a good thing because X, Y, and Z are, tied in dollar amounts to a lower, arrest rate. Like, has the department done any kinds of studies about what prevention and intervention activities cost out to in long-term savings?
That's a great question. And I don't know if any government agency has actually done that type of cost analysis, because the diversions that the community-based interventions and the diversions that we're collaborating with, they are community-based organizations. So they're not necessarily government organizations that we're diverting young people to. I say it's a great question because it's probably something as a community we should be assessing. And of course, a lot of our partners, they may receive subsidies from the government or grants from the government. And so we certainly should be assessing kind of how we're shifting costs from housing a young person in our detention center versus sending them to a community-based intervention. I think it'll be fascinating what we will find. Also, I mean, I will say, and this personal opinion, and it's also evidence-based when you think about the decrease in recidivism. I think it's a better investment in the community and where our dollars really should be going. I mean, we should be paying for what works, right? And that's just sensible government. And so when we think about the cost of, I like to say restoring harm, when we think about the cost of restoring harm, because even if a young person makes a bad decision and they're picked up for making a bad choice or a bad decision or doing something wrong, it's probably because they were harmed in some way or faced some adverse childhood experience. And so getting to the root of that, treating that, getting the young person back on the right path, the cost of not doing that, I know is greater. And that's really what I'm getting at, because they become adults and it's more difficult to try to fix broken adults, than it is to just raise children the right way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Patty, you have a question.
First off, I just want to say to Mr. Matthews and Judge Kai, this is the happiest I've been in, like a week. And just to hear, and probably more, just to hear the work that's going on as a retired school nurse, pediatric nurse practitioner, public health nurse, just hats off to you. This is huge and really important. So thank you. The question I have is that back, I just want to know, like, starting with Fall Hamilton, which was, I think, the first pilot school in Nashville to do trauma-informed and healing-informed practices in metro schools. What are the current schools doing that now? Or are they all doing it? What's happening with that?
Yeah, so Judge Calloway, you can feel free to jump in. I can answer this because I was in a meeting with Dr. Battle at Alignment Nashville last week, and she was talking about this. But the schools have, even since starting off some of the restorative practices at Fall Hamilton and Pearl, they have expanded that to other schools. But district-wide, they've been able to take advantage of, I believe it's ESSER funds that the school was granted, and to create peace and advocacy centers in each school. Okay. And so that's at the elementary, middle, and high school level. They're required to have peace and advocacy centers at each school. And these are spaces in the school with support staff where students could go to when they just need to unplug and reset. I actually mentor some young people at Warner Arts Magnet School weekly. And I went in there a couple of weeks ago, and I saw their advocacy center, and it's a Zen-like space. They have yoga mats out, and they have the lights dimmed, and they have the soft music, and they have a staff person just waiting for any student that may walk down. And some of the guys I mentor, sometimes they get in trouble at school, and they make I'll be blunt, stupid decisions. But sometimes they understand when I make one of those decisions, before I say the wrong thing or before it escalates, I need to go de-escalate and just sit in the advocacy center. And so those are the types of things that our school system is doing. One thing that's in their aspirational budget this year because those are ESSER funds, is to try to operationalize that. And so if you're paying attention to the school budget and how you could support them this year, they are trying to get those expenses covered in their operational budget so that it's not being paid for with grant funds on a temporary basis.
Great. Thank you. We
All right,
have,
thank you.
we're out of time. I know Karen's got her hand up. I know we want to tell people about what's coming next month. And of course, a big round of applause for you, Clerk.
Thank you, Melissa.
Judge
And you all
Cal.
can send me any questions. If you want to take questions and send them to me, I'll be happy to answer them and send them back to you.
Karen, anything else from you?
No, you should go ahead and tell us what we're doing next week, not month.
Okay. Let me see, what are we doing next month? We are going to be having speakers from Fort Negley. You know, there has been ups and downs and public controversy and back and forth on the state of that area in town. And so we're going to hear firsthand some of the history, some of the current developments, and some of the future aspirations for that property and its maintenance and use for the city of Nashville. So be sure and tune in with us next month on the first Friday at noon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
We'll
you.
have it up soon.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for those great comments, Larry. Laura,
Good to see you, Barbara.
good to see you. Great to see you,
Have a great
Sheila.
weekend.
Wonderful,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Happy Passover, happy Easter as appropriate.
Amen.